What's going on? Today, we'll be covering the new Season 14 Pirates of Mischief commendations and how to obtain them. If you're struggling with some more than others, this video is chaptered, so you're welcome to skip ahead. But without further ado, let's get going on. Alright, first up we have the grapple gun commendations, starting with Pressgang Grappler. This commendation requires you to grapple the enemy from their ship over to your ship. And this does require them to be on the deck of their ship. They can't be in the water, so make sure you set that up accordingly. Now, this obviously can be a little tricky to hit, but it is doable. I'd recommend parking your ship as close to another as you can, and just start getting attempts on it, whether or not they are willing to cooperate with you. Bony Boarder is the next commendation, and this will require you to use your grapple gun to board a skeleton ship. This is pretty straightforward. I would recommend finding a galleon over a sloop, since the galley will have this captain's quarters area here in the back for you to grapple to, which will also give you a ledge to land on, making the whole thing easier overall. The one tip I have for this is that landing the grapple does not guarantee that you land the board. It looks like these little platforms on the side of the galley are not enough to catch you, so shoot with your landing in mind. Whether you're going to land on the top deck or on the railing here in the back, make sure that there's a wide enough area under you for you to land on, so you're not having to fire multiple times. Next commendation is Return to Sender. This will also require an enemy pirate ship. I'd recommend getting on a high spot like the bow or the canopy on a sloop, grapple over to their ship, and then grapple back to yours. For me, the great area is the easiest spot to hit on the sloop, and I would recommend doing this quickly if they're not cooperative. Our final commendation for the grapple gun is Isle Hopper. This is another straightforward one. It requires you to travel distance using the grapple gun. There are a few ways for you to get this done. You could find a high point on the map, grapple back and forth between it all day, and get this done in one sitting. You could just let this build up over time as you use the weapon, or, if you're cracked like me, you could perform Skelly Ship Cursed Cannonball heists and use it to get back to your ship. Whatever you do, have fun with it. I think this is a really cool weapon and a great addition to the game overall. Starting off the lure dart commendations, we have Rusty Bucket Bay. This is very easy. It requires you to use lure darts to bring gold skellies into water, saving you some work. The hardest part about this for me was just keeping far enough away that I did not take aggro from the lure darts. Now if you're on a small island and you can hit the darts without getting off the ship, I think that's best, but it's not always an option, so just try to keep your distance. Stealth is very cool, but it does not lose aggro. It only prevents you from getting it if they don't already see you. Like I said, this is very easy. In fact, you can use the same group of skellies to farm this over and over. Just shoot the lure dart in the water, let them go after it and go back to the island, and then shoot another one. Rinse and repeat, and you can probably have this done in 10 minutes. Next, we'll be looking at They Work For Me Now, also known as Skeletal Mutiny. This is a fun one. It requires you to hit a skelly captain with a lure dart and cause his skellies to turn against him. There are a couple issues with this right now, mostly the fact that it just isn't unlocking. Now this was filmed just about a day after season launch, so it may be patched, but it was super annoying to deal with in the interim. Assuming that this has been or will be fixed soon, there are a couple things to note. You'll definitely want to keep range on them, like with the gold skellies, so you're not pulling aggro away from the lure dart, but that can bring its own challenges. If you find yourself in the water, I've seen them missing a lot of their melee hits against the captains. I don't know why they hit me every time, but I do think that's an issue, so try to keep them on the island if you can. Staying on your ship is always the best option, but it's not always viable, so just do it when you can. Also try real hard not to miss your shots, because if you hit the island, the skellies will end up swinging at nothing, and if you hit another skelly, they're gonna die, and that's gonna set you back that much farther. Finally, I've noticed sometimes the captains will just stand there and spam eat while they're getting hit. I don't really know what to do about that. I think the best option is just to get them low yourself and let the skellies finish the job in that situation. Moving on, we have Pied Pirate Piper. Try saying that 5 times fast. I do think you'll need another pirate for this. As far as I can tell, you cannot hit yourself with a lure dart, so have somebody hit you with the lure, run around and group up 5 enemies, and do make sure they're locked on before you start playing. I had to try this one a few times, and I think it's because I started playing before all 5 were locked on. Once you have your 5, just kite them for the next 10 seconds while playing your instrument, and you'll get your Commendation. Rounding out the Lore Dart commendations, we have Enticing Explosion. And now this requires you to use the Lore Dart to hit a keg skelly. And now you do have to hit the skelly itself, not the keg. If you hit the keg, it will not count for the commendation, so make sure to go for the legs, or go for the head if you're feeling frisky. You can hit the same skelly multiple times, so if he's not being killed, I would take advantage and hit him. Now, like with the other Lore Dart commendations, aim is very important here. If you hit the island or you hit another skelly, that keg skelly is just going to go and blow himself up on the lore, and you're going to miss your chance at progress. Our first Poison Dart commendation is Poisonous Pirate. And now this is very simple. It requires you only to land hits on enemies with the poison darts. Now these darts do one-shot standard enemies, at least when you're playing solo, but there is a delayed reaction. So make sure you're not eating any blunders expecting a one-shot when the damage will take a second to do its work. Like the Lore Dart examples, you can farm this out several times on the same enemy, so if you'd like to find an ocean crawler or a skeleton captain that can take a few hits, that's a great way to get this done. Next up is Oceans of Venom, which requires you to kill ocean crawlers using your poison darts. Now, you can just kill these guys when you run across them in the wild, but if you're looking to grind this, I'd recommend hitting a treasury, since they will spawn in much greater numbers. If you're double dipping with Poisonous Pirate for this, using the poison darts alone will be the most efficient, but if you're not, I'd recommend using your other weapon to get them low and securing the kill with the dart. The darts are very strong against these guys, since they counter the blue lightning shield, they counter the coral shield from the red ones, and they'll obviously keep you out of range for the green poison. Finally, for the poison dart, we have Revenge at Last, which requires you to kill snakes using the poison dart. This is another easy one. I just chose a big island to run around and kill every snake that I could find. Do keep in mind that these darts do not kill instantly, so if you're not careful, you might catch a hawk tua as you're running by. Now, assuming that you pick a big island or two and you have a decent spawn of snakes, this one can easily be done in 10 minutes. Moving on to the Black Powder Dart commendations, we have first the Power of 3. And now this one's a little tricky, and unfortunately it's bugged right now, but the premise is you want to group up 3 phantoms using a lore dart and ignite them with a Black Powder Dart while they're under the effects of the lore. So I went to a C4 to try this, and the best strategy I could come up with was bringing the phantoms down to the bottom floor, getting on the ship, and then shooting the lore dart back at the fort. Like I said, it is bugged, which is unfortunate, but it's not too hard to do once you get the mechanics down. The only thing you need to be careful of is if the phantoms are teleporting, they may jump out of the way of the Black Powder Dart at the last second. Our next commendation is Bang Bang a Boom, and this one requires you to detonate gunpowder kegs using Black Powder Darts. This is pretty easy to get passively if you're just shooting every keg that you run across. But if you want to go out of your way to get this done early, I'd recommend a stronghold or a treasury. This does also work on kegs carried by skellies, but you need to make sure that you hit the keg itself and not the skelly. Up next is Fire on Fire. This one is super easy. All you need to do is shoot a Black Powder Dart and then shoot another dart and stack on top of it before the first one explodes. The final dart commendation is Wash Out, and this requires you to use water to extinguish an enemy's Black Powder Dart. This is pretty easy, but you will need an enemy pirate, so whether or not it was by request, when an enemy shoots a Black Powder Dart at you, make sure you have a bucket of water handy to put it out. This does also work on yourself. If you're tagged by the dart, just toss the bucket on yourself and it will extinguish. On to the crouch commendations, we have Sneak Thief, which requires you to steal supplies from an enemy ship while crouched. So you will need an enemy player for this, but the good news is it is spammable. What I mean by that is you can take the supplies, put them back in, take them out again, and you will get progress every time you take the supplies. So if you're having to keep the other player killed, this could probably be done within one respawn. And unfortunately the commie didn't pop for me here when I did it, but I checked afterward and I did get all the way to grade 5. Next up is Skeleton Skulduggery, and this is essentially the skelly equivalent of the last commendation. like the last one, you will need to be in crouch, and you'll need to steal supplies from the ship. This is also spammable, so you can take the supplies, put them back, take them again, but this one is a little harder to do solo. If the skellies hit you, and they will, it interrupts your crouch, and you'll need to get back into that. Also, you may want to get a crew or at least a duo so somebody can be looking after the ship while you're busy. Moving on, we have Comfortable Sneaker, which requires you to travel distance while crouched on an enemy pirate ship. And now you could do this on a hostile ship, but I think that would take forever, so I went ahead and cheesed this a little ways with Tickle so we could get some progress and make sure it's working as intended. I tried to keep my laps interesting, but all you need to do is travel your 1500 meters and you'll get the Commendation. Our last crouch commie is behind you! And this one requires you to crouch for 10 seconds near an enemy pirate without being seen. Now, I'm not sure exactly what qualifies as not being seen, but assuming that they're facing away from you, you should be good to go. This one also did not give me a pop-up when it unlocked, but I was able to verify that it did. Lastly, we have the disguise commendations, starting with Hidden in Plain Sight. And this requires you to travel distance on an enemy player ship while in a disguise. Much like the crouch commendation, this is just based on meters, so you can take whatever kind of route you'd like. And this is possible on a hostile enemy ship, but it'll be a lot easier and a lot more fun if you make friends. The next commendation is Found You, which requires you to interact with or attack a disguised enemy pirate 25 separate times. This is very easy, especially if you have a buddy. The interaction actually will come up as soon as they start using the disguise. They don't even have to be fully in it, so very spammable. You could get this done in 60 seconds or less. These last two commendations are super easy. Chestbuster will require you to be forced from cover by an enemy pirate while you're wearing the chest disguise, and this can either happen by them interacting with you or just hitting you. Now, Broken Barrel is going to be the exact same thing, but for a barrel. So make sure you're in the barrel disguise and just have an enemy pirate either interact with or hit you. And that is a wrap on the Pirates of Mischief commendations, at least until we get those delayed features back. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. There will be a follow-up coming soon once those features are released. And if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.